Hi everybody. I wanted to do a book review today. It's something I've been thinking about doing for a while as a video as opposed to just writing about it on Goodreads. Because I don't know if anybody's reading the Goodreads. I don't know if anybody's watching these videos either, but I love to read and I like to share books that I have come across that are really fantastic. And I've just been sort of savoring this book that I found recently at the library. It's right here. Let's see. It's called The Valley Spirit, A Female Story of Daoist Cultivation by Lindsey Wei. And she's really fascinating. I'd never heard of her before until I picked up this book, but she has a YouTube channel, and so you can actually see some of the things that she was learning while she wrote this book in action on her YouTube channel. It's just Lindsey Wei right there on YouTube, and her skill with a sword is pretty impressive. But I came across this book while I was looking for things on energy forms, specifically Qigong and Tai Chi, because this is a new thing that I've come into recently and I love it. I love it so much. It's so powerful. It's so centering. And as I've mentioned before, ever since I was really young, I've been really interested in energy forms and moving the body about, and you know, all of this stuff that I've done with dance, with the belly dance and West African and the Orisha dances. While the dancing was really fun, and sometimes it's really cool to put on a pretty costume and bounce around, like the deeper aspects of it for me were always like what it would do for me on an internal level, and the energy that it would create and the healing that it would create. And I've been seeking that out through yoga and other forms probably since I was 16, so that's about 22 years now. So yeah, I've been hacking away at this for quite a while. And I had come across like the Tao Te Ching and other things about Wu Wei and Taoism when I was younger, but I think it took like years of looking at other Eastern philosophies before I was ready to try to understand Taoism, because when I first came across it, it was just like, woo, way over the head. And then through the years of cultivation and working with energy forms and understanding nature as a sacred thing, I think I was finally ready to delve into something like this. So I was at the library. I love the new Roy Southwest Branch Library. It's a beautiful space. Alexander likes to play there, and you know, while he is playing and having fun with his little pals, sometimes I just walk along the shelves and just see what comes up for me. Like, very rarely do I ever go in like looking for something anymore. I usually just sort of walk along and run my hands across the spines, and every once in a while something will just leap out at me. And so I found a lot of books on like the Kundalini yoga that way, and self-healing techniques that way. And one day I was just walking through and found this one. This one is fantastic. I don't even know where to begin. Probably at the very beginning. It's beautiful. Let me just read you a couple of passages from the very beginning, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about what this book is actually about, if you're interested. So it starts out so beautifully from the Tao Te Ching. The valley spirit never dies. It is the woman, primal mother. Her gateway is the root of heaven and earth. It is like a veil barely seen. Use it. It will never fail. So I liked that, obviously. It starts out really powerful, and I'm going to read you a little bit of the prologue. I move through life, seeking what it is to be a woman, for I am the first and the last. I look at everything to find this answer, this image. For the first 20 years of my life, it seemed I lived in a dry desert of womanhood. I didn't even know of any women to look to, or worse, I looked to men to understand what a woman was. The ways of women who I saw, who I imitated, did not fulfill me, though at times may have felt as if they did, only trained me as a temptress, forever ice-like and working with illusory power. I am the honored one and the scorned one. I am the whore and the holy one. That is why I cried at the age of 24 when I found the Gospel according to Mary Magdalene and other Gnostic texts. They held the secrets of alchemy and the answers to my quest. And so, Lindsey Wei is an American, and she is mixed race. I believe her father is Chinese and her mother is not. It never really like specifies what the other parent was, but she goes to China when she's quite young to seek out her roots, and goes to this temple for Guanyin and has this experience where something is awakened in her. And so years later, she decides that she's going to go to China to seek out not only her roots, but what this thing was that was awakened in her. And she ends up on the spiritual path of the Daoist, and she spends a lot of time with multiple different masters until she finds like her true master, who is Master Shi Fu. And so the whole book is about her seeking hidden knowledge through meditation, through all of these movements, through the discipline, and then the constant wavering back and forth of like not knowing really where she belongs. Like, she's not Chinese, she's not really American, she's trying to seek out her roots. And I just really love stories like this. Another book that I'd like to review sometime for you guys, perhaps in a video, is Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko. And this book kind of reminded me of that in a strange way, as just the people who are in between, the different races and the different countries are the ones who are integrating all of the knowledge, and they're kind of the healers in between. It's just beautiful. The whole book, like all the way through, reads like poetry. Her journey in and of itself is really impressive, but the way that she writes is so poetic. I told my husband, who is also a writer, that even though this is on a topic he might not really be that drawn to, I think he'd really love it because the language is so beautiful. Like, it's taken me a while to get through this book because I've sort of been savoring it like a fine wine, because it's so rare that I find a book with such beautiful language. And so the language is beautiful, the journey is beautiful, and you come away with this like beautiful, peaceful sense of internal strength and medicine, and like the pain that comes with that too. Like, these spiritual journeys are never effortless. There's a lot of that goes into it that's gut-wrenching at times, and she spares no details. Like, a lot of the gritty stuff is in here too. And I appreciated that about her, because a lot of times you'll come across these so-called spiritual books or memoirs, and it's all flowery and fluffy, and it's like, whose life is like that? No one's, you know. There were a lot of things that she went through in here with the men in her life that I could definitely relate to, and understood where she was coming from, and it was just nice to read that. So it's a beautiful book all about Qigong and the Daoist tradition and her journey, and there's some really beautiful descriptions of the Wudang Mountains here. It's just fascinating. The very last chapter is all about inner alchemy, and that I actually think my husband would be really interested in, because he's been on this sort of alchemical quest for, boy, I don't even know, like 5 or 6 years now since he started the book that he's currently writing. So I think he would enjoy that. But let me just read you a little bit from the very last chapter. It's so pretty. Knowledge is in the stillness of the cave. When Shi Fu told me the story of Dao Shifu's ascension, his most endeared master, I believed him. I simply believed him, even when I cannot comprehend it. Something in me knows he is right. and that life will eventually prove it to me. We should learn to believe, because although doubt is here to hold us back, there is no limit to existence. Science and fact and the things they say are not possible. These things are like a leash around the neck of the spirit. So, there's a lot of things in this book where they talk about, like, facts are facts and science is science, but science in and of itself is a kind of belief, and it's all based around our very limited sensory organs as a human being. And what this is saying is that there's more than that we cannot perceive. So even science doesn't encompass the whole. Like, I have thought for a really long time that if we could wed science with a sense of mystery, with a sense of, dare I say, a spiritualness in everything that science is discovering, then maybe we could wed that into a healthier way of being with the world. Because when things are just cold, dead facts, then they don't really hold, like, us in their grasp the way that some of these other things do. And so she talks about that quite a bit too. Oh, and there was this really wonderful and interesting part. I should have bookmarked it, dang it. But it was really weird because she was talking about how she'd also spent a lot of time with Native American traditions before she went to China. And she talked about how each one of those things had value. And one of the things that she brought with her to China to show her master was this deer spine that she had found in the desert. And when she showed him this thing, he said, oh, this is so very important because the spine is where the spirit resides. And oh, that like just really struck me because I've been doing a lot of work lately with Kundalini yoga, and it's all about raising energy up the spine, and that all of the energy in the body goes up and down the spine. It's the channel where our energy moves. And another thing that I found really interesting when I was pregnant with Alexander is that the spine is the oldest part of our body. We have a spine before we even have a head. So it's literally like where life begins when you change from like a little, zygote into an embryo. You get your spine. So this bit about the spine I found really fascinating. And then later that day, after reading that chapter, Alexander and I went for a little walk along the railroad tracks that are here by our house. And we like to look through the rocks and find little treasures, and we're always finding lovely things to bring home. And I stumbled across this spinal cord and I thought, oh, that's really weird. Like, I just read about this thing and now here I am finding one. I just found it kind of spooky in a good way. So yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff. There's a lot of books that I read, but I don't really feel compelled to talk about all of them because it's like, yeah, that was an okay book, but this was a great book. A really, really moving book. So if you're interested in reading some, like a memoir that is about seekers, that's also written beautifully, this is a good book for you. Again, it's called The Valley Spirit, A Female Story of Daoist Cultivation by Lindsey Wei. So if you're interested in reading it, I highly recommend. So anyway, I hope you read it if you're interested in that kind of thing. And if you like this, maybe I'll do some more book reviews in the future. Well, I'm gonna go get my son out of the bathtub now. He's been swimming in there for a while, so he's probably a raisin, and we're gonna get on with our day. I hope you guys are having a good one, and I will chat with you later. Bye-bye.